From 1983 to 1989, Panama's dictator, politician, and military officer ruled de facto the country. Before the American invasion of Panama forced him from office, he was an authoritarian leader who made a personal fortune through drug trafficking operations and had long-standing connections to American intelligence services. When President George H.W. Bush became impatient with his harsh drug trafficking rule and dispatched nearly 28,000 troops to invade and overthrow him. But how did this happen to him? Who was he as a person? And why did the U.S. make such a significant choice? Watch this video till the end to find out. Now let's get it on. The early life of Manuel Noriega. Noriega, born in Panama City in 1938, received in-depth training in the military and intelligence fields before becoming a CIA informant. He was a Panama National Guard lieutenant while working for American intelligence. When he backed Omar Torrijos in a military coup, Noriega rose through the ranks of the Panamanian military. Noriega ascended to the position of head of Panama's military intelligence under Torrijos, the previous dictator of the Central American Republic. When Torrijos perished in a plane crash in 1981, Noriega strengthened his political position and took over as Panama's de facto leader. But as soon as he became the republic's dictator, his brutality increased, leading to a significant conflict with the U.S. and ultimately to his downfall. As a dictator, Noriega's authoritarian rule in Panama was characterized by repression of the media, the militarization of society, and the persecution of political opponents, effectively influencing the results of all elections. He did not support any particular social or economic ideologies. Instead, he relied on military nationalism to keep his supporters. Noriega was well known for his complex relationship with the United States, being both an ally and a foe. He has been compared to authoritarian leaders like Augusto Pinochet and Muammar Gaddafi, and is called one of the most well-known dictators of his era. In a mestizo, or mixed-race family with Native American, African, and Spanish ancestry, Manuel Antonio Noriega Moreno was born in Panama City. His birth date is typically February 11, 1934, though this is unclear. That day has been reported to have occurred in 1934, 1936, and 1938 by various sources. Noriega himself provided different dates of birth. El Terraplén de San Felipe is the area where he was born. Noriega's mother, who was not his father's wife, was described as a cook and a laundress. Ricorte Noriega, his father, was an accountant. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was still a young child, and Noriega was raised by a godmother in a one-room apartment in the Terraplén slum neighborhood. His parents had died by the time he was 5 years old. Noriega attended two prestigious high schools in Panama City, the Instituto Nacional and Escuela República de México, where he first received his education. His godmother described him as an oddly serious child, a bookish student who always dressed well. Luis Carlos Noriega Hurtado, his older half-brother and a socialist activist who was also a student at the Instituto Nacional, was the first relative Manuel had ever met. Luis introduced Manuel to politics, enlisted him in the Socialist Party's youth wing, and welcomed him into his home when he first moved in. Later, Luis Noriega would oversee the electoral tribunal in Panama. Noriega participated in demonstrations and wrote articles decrying American presence in Panama while he was a member of the Socialist Youth Organization. At this point, he reportedly started cooperating with American intelligence agencies by sharing details about his fellow soldiers' activities. The first payment he got from the U.S. was $10.70 in 1955. Noriega wanted to go into medicine, but could not get into the University of Panama's medical program. After completing his studies at the Instituto Nacional, Noriega could obtain a scholarship to Chorrillos Military School in Lima, Peru, with the help of Luis. The latter, by this point, had been given a position in the Panamanian embassy in Peru. Noriega started attending school in Lima in 1958. While there, he came to know about Roberto Diaz Herrera, and he went to study at the Peruvian Police Academy with him, who later became a close ally. Head of Intelligence. Noriega proved to be a brilliant leader. He sent 1,300 Panamanians into exile while in office because they threatened the government. To later use them as hostages, he also maintained files on several officials from the military, executive branch, and judicial system. Noriega also served as the head of immigration and the political police. During his administration, he intimidated and persecuted opposition parties and their leaders. He was said to have carried out most of Torrijos' dirty work. For instance, Jes Hector Gallego Herrera was killed by order of Noriega because the government considered his work at an agricultural cooperative a threat. According to reports, a helicopter dropped Gallego's body into the water. He also tried to portray Panama as a center for law enforcement against drug smuggling during this time, perhaps under pressure from Chorrillos. Early in the 1970s, reports of Noriega's potential involvement in drug trafficking reached American law enforcement officials. Due to possible diplomatic repercussions, Dinges claims that no official criminal investigations or indictments were made. These witnesses included a drug smuggler detained in New York and an arrested boat courier. Although Noriega would have led any effort in enforcement, Chorrillos frequently pledged the U.S.'s cooperation in stopping drug smuggling. As a result, the U.S. started to view Noriega as a barrier to stopping drug smuggling. Dinges claims that the U.S. government considered several options, including assassinating Noriega and implicating him in a made-up plot against Chorrillos to get Noriega out of the drug trafficking business. Even though there was no assassination attempt, Dinges believes that the other strategies may have been used in the early 1970s. Dinges claimed that beginning in 1972, the United States relaxed its efforts to apprehend smugglers working for the Panamanian government, possibly due to a deal Chorrillos and President Richard Nixon reached. An ally of America. Noriega began his career in intelligence in the 1950s and remained an employee of the CIA until the late 1980s. Noriega proved a significant American intermediary when leftist movements were growing in Central and Latin American nations. He played a crucial role in the U.S. effort to topple Nicaragua's leftist Sandinista government. Noriega permitted Panama to be used as a conduit for transferring money and military hardware to the right-wing army group stationed to oppose the Sandinista regime in his efforts to support the Ronald Reagan-led government. Among Noriega's activities in Panama was his position as a significant cocaine trafficker. According to reports, despite being aware of his drug trafficking activities, the U.S. kept completely silent about them because they relied on him for intelligence services. In 1985, Oliver North, a U.S. lieutenant colonel, and Noriega were cooperating. In exchange for North's assistance in helping Noriega improve his reputation with the U.S. government, Noriega offered to kill or sabotage Sandinista leaders. Noriega agreed to train Contra soldiers in Panama in preparation for an invasion of Nicaragua in 1986, when North met with him there in June 1985. The United States disregarded Noriega's use of weapons shipment networks to smuggle drugs into the country in exchange for Panama's support of U.S. and Israeli efforts to supply the Contras with weapons. According to rumors, Noriega was involved in the Iran-Contra scandal in the middle of the 1980s. There are conflicting reports regarding how much U.S. sources supported Noriega's attorney. According to Noriega's biographer, the United States gave Noriega or his intelligence services annual payments in the neighborhood of $110,000 in 1976, increasing to $185,000 to $200,000 when he came to power during the Reagan administration Frederick Kemp in early 1990. Dinges claimed he could not locate anyone who would confirm rumors that the CIA paid him $200,000 annually. Frank A. Rubino, Noriega's lead attorney, asserted that the CIA had paid Noriega $11 million before and during the trial. Federal prosecutors revealed that Noriega had received $322,000 from the U.S. Army and CIA over 31 years, from 1955 to 1986, in a financial report they submitted in January 1991. They claimed that the information was made public to refute claims made by Noriega's defense lawyers that the CIA had paid him millions of dollars. Included in these payments were gifts and incentives worth a total of $76,039 from the CIA. Against America. When Noriega took over as dictator of Panama, he became more brutal and corrupt, much to the worry of the U.S. He declared a state of emergency, shut down media outlets, and dispatched his military to suppress the uprising of the populace against his authoritarian techniques into exile. Things reached a boiling point when Noriega beheaded Hugo Spadafora as his opponent in 1985. The United States had turned against Nicaragua by the second half of the 1980s and had stopped providing Nicaragua with any aid. They intensified their attacks on his drug trafficking operations and considered using military force to end them. Later, in late 1989, George H.W. Bush, the country's president at the time, launched what became known as Operation Just Cause, after Noriega declared a state of war with the U.S. and a U.S. Marine was attacked by soldiers from Panama. During this operation, U.S. forces invaded Panama and overthrew Noriega. Later, he faced multiple trials in a Miami court, including those for drug trafficking and money laundering. He was expelled from Panama to France before being returned and jailed there. U.S. soldiers from Delta Force built a perimeter around the Nunciature to stop them from invading the Holy See's embassy as required by the treaty, gunning vehicle engines, converting a nearby field into a helicopter landing pad, and blasting loud rock music. A Van Halen cassette tape provided by Special Forces Sergeant John Bishop were some of the methods used to try and get Noriega out from inside. 10 days later, Noriega gave himself up on January 3, 1990, and he was held as a prisoner of war and later transported to America. The last days of Noriega. Due to high blood pressure and a brain hemorrhage, Noriega was transferred to the Hospital Santo Tomas in Panama City on February 5, 2012. Before being sent back to prison, he spent 4 days in the hospital. On March 21, 2012, it was reported that Noriega had a brain tumor. However, it was later discovered to be benign. He was released from custody on January 23, 2017, and put under house arrest to get ready for the surgery to remove the tumor. He experienced a brain hemorrhage on March 7, 2017, during surgery, which put him in the Hospital Santo Tomas's intensive care unit in a critical condition. On May 29, 2017, Noriega passed away at 83. Shortly before midnight, according to the President of Panama, Juan Carlos Varela, the death of Manuel Noriega closes a chapter in our history. His daughters and his relatives deserve to bury him in peace. Juan Carlos Varela claimed that Noriega's passing brought their nation's history close. That's it for today's video. We hope you enjoyed the content of the video. If you did, show some love, hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss out on our excellent and informative videos.